Hello and welcome back to the All Out Brits Podcast, the podcast that brings you all things NFL from across the seas here in sunny old England. And this week, in week 4, it was an absolute stormer. We saw Jarod Goff throw more perfect passes than we saw Rashee Rice have complete downs in the game. And we also saw Jarod Goff have more receiving touchdowns than half of the wide receivers in the league. And that says a lot about everything that went on. And as always, to talk about all the crazy things that went on is the crazy man himself, Mr. Elliot Greenwood. Elliot, how you doing this week? How you feeling after week 4?
I'm feeling all right, mate, after week 4. It's been a lot of really good games, a lot of really bad games, but I'm sure we'll get to talking about all that, Taryn. There's been a bit of stick in the comments this week about our takes. And one thing I want to say is we're not pundits, we're not personalities, we're just people with a personality that want to be pundits one day, and we are absolutely storming the NFL UK scene, aren't we, sir? So let's keep going, let's get into it, and let's just keep attacking the season, bro.
I hear that. It's always a bloody Yanks whinging, isn't it? But
always.
We'll let it slide. And we'll start with a team that definitely did not slide, and that was the Lions. Now, the Lions went and faced the unbeaten Seattle Seahawks in a game that I think we knew was going to be offense heavy, was going to be points heavy, and it did not disappoint. What did you make of the late game for us over here between the Lions and the Seahawks?
Jarod Goff, bro, you mentioned him. Jarod Goff was back on top, back where we all want him to be. 18 of 18, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown also helped out with a little passing touchdown. Again, absolute W for them. But why did it happen? Why were they so good against the Seattle Seahawks? The team that were 3-0, the team that were the team to beat in the league. They got the ball to everyone. They shared the love. Yeah. Everyone got a touchdown. We mentioned Goff. We mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown. Gibbs got 2, Montgomery got 1, Williams and Brown both got 1 in the air as well. They were getting it around. They were being a bit filthy with it, but that's what was good. What did you make of Jarod Goff? What do you make of the Lions, bro?
I mean, unbelievable to have a perfect game. I mean, I'm surprised that is a record setter, that no one else had a perfect game before him. But yeah, 18 for 18, just under 300 yards. What an absolutely unbelievable game. And I think we talked about the fact that he hadn't started the season too well. Neither had the Lions. The offense wasn't really clicking. We didn't really see the dynamic sort of state that they were towards the end of last year. But he's come back, he stayed clean, and he had an unbelievable game. And like you said, got the ball around, and that helped out quite a bit. And on the flip side of it, Geno Smith, he definitely got the ball around. He had 52 pass attempts, near 400 yards, and still couldn't get the job done. What on earth went wrong for the Seahawks in that one then?
I think you mentioned it was Geno Smith's limitations. It was 56 pass attempts that I've got, Taryn, so our stats are slightly different. I back mine more than I back yours.
It's the bad takes again, bad takes.
But again, the Seahawks are primarily the rushing team, that they rely on that rushing attack. And Kenneth Walker, by all accounts, was absolutely fantastic. He's got 3 touchdowns, did the lad, but it just wasn't enough. And when you rely on the rush more than you rely on the pass, you can't pass the ball 56 times. But you can only pass the ball, or try to pass the ball 56 times, when you're playing from behind. And that's what the Lions did. They got the Seahawks playing from behind. Jarod Goff gets the job done.
And Kenneth Walker had a WWE move in there, which is doing the absolute rounds on social media. So I think Vince McMahon is probably sat at home trying to get a contract sorted as we speak. But overall, this week we did see a lot of unbeaten teams lose those records. The Steelers were another one. We now only have 2 teams that are unbeaten. One being the Chiefs, somehow a magical attempt. And one other team that was crumbling was the Buffalo Bills. Now, I know we talked about how good this game was going to be. And to be honest, it kind of disappointed a little bit because the Ravens stomped, spat and spanked the Bills like they were asking for it. Josh Allen got sat pretty early on in the game because it was a lost cause. But wow, the Ravens' run game absolutely demolished the Bills.
Mate, completely right. Completely right. And that's what the Ravens had to do. When you go out and get arguably the best running back in the league, you've got to feed in the ball. And when you're feeding the ball, this is what happens. He gets 24 touches and he gets you 2 total touchdowns. He was absolutely explosive, 1 yard away from a record-breaking, I think it was, what would it be? Would it be 4 200-yard games on the ground, something like that, Taryn?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Record-setting, record demolishing of the rest of the league. He was absolutely fantastic that game. Lamar Jackson, equally as impressive. But why did the Bills kind of fall to this game? For me, I don't know what you think, Taron. The Ravens defense, they got after Josh Allen. They got after the main guy. These are the games where Josh Allen can't do it all himself. He needs someone else. And I think that's what we really saw. This is where he misses the Stephon Diggs. This is where he misses that wide receiver one, that true wide receiver one. Here's a question for you, Taron. Can you name me a Bills wide receiver?
Currently? Well, we've got Keon Coleman, we've got Khalil Shakir, and that's about it. James Cook is getting more respect.
Absolute nobodies, isn't it? It's people that shouldn't be wide receiver one on the depth chart.
You're not wrong.
It's people that should be. The guy who got, I forget who got the most amount of receiving yards from this week. He was a 5th rounder a couple of years ago. He should not be your wide receiver one. You need to go out and get some help for Josh Allen, because James Cook can't be the guy to rely on. He's not an explosive kind of running back. He's a C-gap runner. He's going to get you the plays off the edge, but Josh Allen can't do it all by himself, and that's where we saw what they're missing, and it is a wide receiver one.
It is definitely. I think Haley Steinfeld won't be too happy with Mr. Josh Allen's performance. But I agree with you. I think we saw the limitation at the Bills team. Before the season started, we knew that there was going to be gaps and that there was going to be issues. And to be honest, I didn't expect them to perform as well as they did. But now these are the games, the big AFC clashes where you do start to see the difference in quality. And that being said, maybe the Ravens could have lent a few receivers to the Bills. Because I tell you what, Mark Andrews, again, he might be saving people's lives, but Lamar is not saving his career whatsoever. No points in fantasy whatsoever. Zay Flowers pretty much did nothing as well. What are you attributing that to? Is it because of how good the run game's been? Isaiah Likely's been unbelievable as well. It just seems like the big core men that we saw last year getting the ball aren't touching it whatsoever this year.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to that ground game. Lamar Jackson only had under 170 yards in the air, but on the ground, like we said, that's where they're getting their yards. They are spreading the ball out. Zay Flowers, like you mentioned, only got one catch. Derik Henry's getting involved in the passing game, as well. But Isaiah Likely as a tight end one is probably what's most surprising thing about that entire offense. Mark Andrews, for the most part of his career, has been absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. I can see him being an unstoppable tight end on 31 other teams. So why isn't he on his team? That's what I really want to kind of... Let's talk about it. What does Isaiah Likely have that Mark Andrews doesn't?
It's very interesting because I think a lot of... It might be the fact of what Mark Andrews has and Isaiah Likely doesn't, and that is Mark Andrews was being used a lot as a blocker in the last game, especially when Lamar was pulling the ball out and running with it or on these design draws. It seemed like he was relying on Andrews to block him and guard him the way, which I don't think is something that Isaiah Likely is particularly, pretty known for. And so I don't know if that is the scheme that's been drawn up, if that's what we're running with. But surely you need to get the man with probably the safest hands we've seen in recent years, the ball in his hands, let him deliver, because 0 points and 0 targets is really, really rough for a man as good as he is.
For fantasy owners like yourself, bro, that tight end position is very problematic. There's no answers that are going to come up. Is there? Absolutely no answers. One position, though, that isn't problematic is quarterback. And one quarterback that we always talk about on this podcast, that we love to talk about.
Wait just a second. We got to get it up. Ladies and gentlemen.
That's why he's the GOAT. The GOAT.
The GOAT. The absolute GOAT. It's Mr. CJ Stroud.
Mr. CJ Stroud.
Let's talk about it, bro. Texans versus the Jaguars. Jaguars looking bad. Texans looking good. Division matchup. Talk to me.
Well, to be honest with you, the Jags didn't look as bad as I thought they were going. I mean, in parts of that game, they had CJ Stroud lost for absolute answers. And again, I don't know what is going on with the Texans. Miko Ryans had an unbelievable unit last year, but Stroud doesn't seem to look as comfortable as he did last year. I don't know if it's the extra responsibilities, maybe, sort of the rookie leniencies he had last year. But this year, some of the throws just don't look as accurate. The interceptions as well. We hardly saw an interception last year, but this year we've seen quite a few. And I think the Jags played on that. I mean, again, absolutely stormed through. I think the run game was a big part for the Jags on the weekend because Trevor Lawrence, he is absolutely awful. How that man was a number one pick is beyond me. He's got a lot of money and he's doing absolutely nothing with it apart from his hair care products. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And in the end, I think it was probably the Jags shooting themselves in the foot more than it was a Stroud and the Texan band coming together and outplaying them. What about yourself? Were you impressed with Stroud? Were you impressed with Stephon Diggs, who seems a bit happier in Houston as well?
There was. Oh, I'm always impressed with Stroud, bro. You don't have to ask me twice. I love CJ Stroud. I think he plays the position so well. He plays it so calm. Even with the interceptions, you have to look at his overall game and his overall play. He just looks absolutely superb.
Yeah.
That Jacksonville defense was shocking. That secondary was absolutely appalling. That's where they need to address. But when you put so much of your money into your quarterback, these things are going to happen. If your quarterback can't win you the games, you can't expect your defense to. Not when he's taking up so much of the cap. One player that CJ Stroud did rely on a lot that game, 12 receptions, 151 yards and a touchdown. Career game, Nico Collins.
Wow. Nico Collins.
Well done. What an absolute game for him. He's turning out to be a wide receiver one, even though they've arguably got another couple wide receiver ones who would arguably be wide receiver ones on other teams. We mentioned, obviously, Stephon Diggs. What a game. What an absolutely fantastic game. The Texans looking ahead now, going 3-1, looking like a football team. The Jaguars, though, not won a game yet. They are 2 weeks away from going to London. Back-to-back weeks in London for them coming up. Where do they go? What do they have to do? You mentioned, obviously, Trevor Lawrence, but I don't see an end to this anytime soon.
No, and it's really surprising because last year, people forgetting they were unbeaten for the longest time. I think we're one of the last teams to, stay unbeaten. They looked like a proper football team. Don't get me wrong; they didn't look, as if they were going to storm and win the Super Bowl, but they were winning games and getting through. And Trevor Lawrence looked like a half decent quarterback. He's been paid. I don't know what has gone on. He's probably added more to that team. Getting Gabe Davis to come in. He's got Christian Kirk still. And then he's got Travis Etienne still there. And you add Brian Thomas. And still, he can't throw anything to save his bloody life. I have no idea what is going on over there. All fingers point to Doug Peterson's head, to be honest, at this point. But I also think maybe this is the beginning of the end for the Jags, and maybe this is the calling for a new franchise, as you mentioned, in London. We might come back to that a little bit later on as well, I think.
Decent little segue,
yes,
that, bro.
0-4, last team to not have a win. What do you think? How badly is this going to end for the Jags?
It's going to keep getting worse. I really do think it's going to keep getting worse. I hate them. I really don't like them. For some reason. I just don't know why. I just don't like them.
I know why. I've got a few reasons, to be honest with you.
Even the kit is dog. The badge is dog. The stadium itself is dog. The city of Jacksonville is dog. What is it about Jacksonville that attracts anything? Any players? No one wants to go there. For me, it's just a poverty franchise. And it has to come to London to get the fans. It's got more fans over here in the UK than it does over in London. You mentioned Doug Peterson, obviously. He's a Super Bowl winning head coach. For me, he can't be the problem. He looked brilliant when he was on the Eagles. He looked brilliant in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
But another head coach that we are going to mention as well, who's come under some criticism quite a lot recently, is the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Taryn. Let's touch on that very quickly. Let's touch on that Miami offense and how is it playing currently, and where do you see the Dolphins going?
It is absolutely shocking to have that many assets in that team. I mean, last year, they were up there as one of the most unbelievable franchises when it came to the offensive side of it. Defensively, they struggled, even though they had some star players on it. But offensively, wow, you didn't know how to defend them. You had Waddle in the slot, and if you couldn't get the ball to Waddle, then you knew it was going right over your head to Tyreek. And then you had Devon Achane, the rookie, just storming through you. And this year, again, nothing's changed apart from the fact that their quarterback is probably one more bump on the head away from ending his football career. But again, Mike McDaniel, I think a lot of people have questioned his play calling from time to time. As brilliant as he is and as great as a personality as he is, Summit is not right over there again. And I thought he's mentioned this week saying that he needs to make offensive changes and things won't look the same after this Tennessee loss. And I think that needs to be the case because you cannot have Tyreek Hill having 4 receptions and only 20 yards carries as well. It's just ridiculous. And then have Devon Achane. It's ridiculous. You have so many good players. You should not be losing to Will Levis and the rest of those lunatics in Tennessee.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Losing to Will Levis, obviously, we mentioned that this week. Get the sound ready, bro.
Don't worry, it's here.
You've lost to the Hawks as well. You can't beat the Hawks without the tour. Play the tune.
No,
what's happening? We've had a stinker.
Spit on that thing.
There we go. It's embarrassing. It's cringy. It's all out, Brits. But what has, like you said, how has the offense changed? For me, they are. Last season, you mentioned the air attack. It was if it wasn't Waddle, it was Tyreek. If it wasn't Tyreek, it was Waddle. This season now, without Tua, they've not got a very competent quarterback at all. They've been rushing the ball more than they've been passing the ball. Devon A-Chain isn't a heavy back. He isn't a guy that's going to get you those dog yards. Again, he's another C-gap runner. He needs to find the edge. He's explosive, but you can't get that without Tyreek over the top. When that team's rushing more than the passing, it's not a good look. So they need to find a way to kind of open up that offense again, get the ball in the air, get it flying. Does it come from another quarterback? For me, it does. I think it has to. And going forward with Tua, obviously getting so many injuries, hitting his head so many times. This week, we've also had the news that Brett Favre has been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, obviously related to that repetitive head trauma that's been going on countless times for countless players for countless seasons. That's got to weigh in the back of his mind, especially this week. So I know he's come out in the media and said that he wants to play, but can his body continue to play? That's another question that he and his family are going to have between themselves.
100%. And I think another question that people that follow the Dolphins and Dolphins owners are going to have is about whether they keep him in fantasy. And so we'll move on to our beautifully and aptly named fantasy team, Show Me the TDs. And I tell you what, this week in fantasy, I definitely saw a few TDs and I'm very, very happy about it. Now, for myself, I have Tyreek and I have Devon A-Chain, and they sat both on my bench this week because I could not trust them against Will Levis and the Band of Merry Men.
Really,
I'm very, very glad that I did. And somehow I came away with 150 points and get the win that I so desired after going 1-2. The hero of the weekend for me, most probably, was going to be Mike Evans. Wow, that man delivers. And I tell you what, he did the job for me this week, and I'm very, very glad about it. What about yourself, Mr. Greenwood? Is it all sunshine and rainbows in your team?
It's more rain than rainbows in my team at the moment, bro. We had a shocking week. We can't dress it up any more than that. When you rely on your receivers sometimes, and we all do, we all have players that rely on. You relied on Tyreek last season, bro. For me, this season it was Rashee Rice. He was my guy. He was the guy who I was going to back all the way. But when your quarterback decides to spear you in the leg because he threw an interception, what are you doing? What are you actually doing? You got 0 points. Then at the start of the day, we mentioned the tight end position. Trey McBride, why aren't you available? And why do I have to change you out of my team 3 hours prior to you starting your game? What is happening there? I get your backup, and he's equally as awful as you have been all season, bro. Running backs got me nothing. Absolutely nothing. Quarterback Kyler, what's he been doing? Breece Hall, he was my running back. He was my starting running back. My star. He was the talisman. He couldn't fail. He's failed. He is failing. All right, 76 points. 76 points this week. But next week we go again. We go back to the drawing board. We try and change the defense because that's the only thing that's actually been getting us points. So we got to look at what offenses have been playing. We're going to go on the waiver wire and we're going to hit it hard this week, bro. There's one man that I really want. I've already put it in the request for. We're on the waiver wire.
And who is that, Mr. Greenwood?
I'm not telling you, bro. I'm not telling you until.
And who is that, Mr. Greenwood? Shall I tell you who my waiver wire pickup this week is? Mr. Dontavian Wicks of the Green Bay Packers.
That'll be interesting to see if you get that. I'm sure you will. Mine, on the other hand, I think there'll be some competition for. I'll go with Mr. Jaden Daniels. QB1 is still available.
A man that I had about 3 weeks ago and dumped him back onto the waivers.
I'm going for him. I'm going all out for him. And if someone gets him, I'm trading all out for him because I need something explosive. I need something.
Well, thanks for letting me know because Jaden Daniels, welcome back to Big Cop Rock.
You dirty bugger, you know you're right. I just think I want some players on my team that I enjoy watching at least. If I'm going to get battered every week, at least I can go, my guy. Do you know what I'm saying? I want someone to back. I want someone to love. Jaden Daniels is that guy this season. Last season it was Stroud. This season it's Daniels.
Very much so. And for a man that was supposed to be predicted to go 13-2, We found the two, and I'm hoping for an ultimate run from this point onwards. But we'll move forward and look ahead to week 5 in the NFL. Now, lovely enough, it's bye weeks. We're getting people having a bit of a rest. It's probably come at a good time for some teams and probably a bad time for others. Maybe so the Lions because of the momentum that they got going on. But one team who had an unbelievable week last week, and we'll be very glad they aren't going on a bye, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Absolutely unbelievable game. Absolutely dismantled the Eagles, 14 up in the first quarter. Baker Mayfield, the resurgence stories this year are absolutely unbelievable. And he is coming up against a Falcons team with Kirk Cousins, who's struggling a little bit, say the very least. He threw for near 300 yards and couldn't get anything but an interception to come out of it. So Falcons versus the Bucs in the early game this week. What have we got in mind for that one there, Mr. Greenwood?
Mate, you mentioned it. It's all about Baker. Can the Baker
Mania.
I think he can. I love him, bro. I love watching him play football. He's the story. He's the redemption act. He's the one that we all want to see. 8 touchdowns this season to only 2 picks. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans look absolutely sensational. As always, Mike Evans will always get 1,000 yards. Chris Godwin will always be there or thereabouts. They will always get a handful of touchdowns. But what they have done this season is they found a little hidden gem, and that's in the running game. Obviously, we knew about Rashad White and how he's been obviously been pretty solid. But Bucking Irving as well on the ground, he's come out to kind of help out, be a little bit of an RB2. But he looks a little bit similar to what the Cowboys had a few years ago with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. They're sharing the load a bit, and it's looking like it's really helping out their numbers and the offense as a whole. I think what's most surprising about this Tampa resurgence is how bad that defense is. For me, it's a really below average defense. It's not done anything at all season, but it hasn't had to because Baker Mayfield is the guy. How good is Baker, bro? Where do you see that game going? For me, it's all the way back to Tampa.
100%. I know the Falcons came away with a very interesting win against a Saints team that, again, have absolutely been kneecapped more so than Rashee Rice. And it's devastating to see. But the Falcons, again, I know they're transferring the ball around between the receivers and between the running game, but it does not seem to be coming fully as we expect it to. Whereas, like you said, the Bucs, Baker Mayfield, he can run with it, he can pass with it, he can do whatever he wants. He is absolutely on fire. They obviously had that little bit of a blip against the Lions, and they also had a bit of a blip against... I can't remember what team it was, but they had a bit of a stinker a few weeks back. But they're back. They're very much so back. And I'm expecting them to absolutely wipe the Falcons away this year. And I think Baker Mayfield could be up there for an MVP shout by the end of the season. But we'll ride with that one. We will ride with that one. And as you mentioned...
I feel Baker MVP. I feel Baker MVP. Like I can sense it. I put a 5 on that, bro. If I was you, I can really taste that MVP for Baker.
I think another MVP shout, it might be worth putting a 5 on, is Mr. Sam Darnold. Now, his Vikings team, I think we'll talk about that game quickly. That Packers game was kind of a little bit crazy. I mean, the Vikings, they've got a knack now of scoring near 14 points within the first quarter and wiping teams away. And it got a little bit scary and close towards the end. And Sam Darnold had a few shaky moments. What did you make of that Packers-Vikings game? Now looking forward to the next one against the Jets.
I think you mentioned it there. It's about getting in front early. If you can destroy teams in the first quarter, it squashes a lot. It puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And that showed. Jordan Love in the first half looked quite shaky. In the second half, he looked a little bit more back to the Jordan Love that we all knew and thought would be MVP by the end of the season. But on the flip side of that, the Vikings, they are going to get the job done. They're going to play the Jets this week as well. In London, bro.
Welcome home, baby.
Back to its inaugural home, almost. Over here, it's called American football. Over there, it's called football. But what we all love is that ball in the air. And I think this is going to be the game. Can the Jets get the ball in the air with Aaron Rodgers, or can Sam Darnold just batter his old team? I would love to see it. He's battered his old team before in the Niners. Can he do it again in the Jets, Taryn? Where do you see this game going? For me, Minnesota leave London with the W.
100%. I think this Minnesota train still keeps on riding. Justin Jefferson having absolutely unbelievable games. And Aaron Jones on the ground, same as last week, just absolutely killing it, churning up the field. this Vikings just looks like an absolute team. I know we talked about their defense was a little bit shaky against the Packers, but as a unit against this Jets team, who really, really struggled against the Broncos in probably the worst game we might see all season. But overall, yeah, this Viking team, you got their colours on your shirt. I think we know why, because they are absolutely storming it this season, and we could be in for a long, long journey with them as well.
I hope so, bro. Obviously, Aaron Jones, superb again. Going back to Green Bay and just doing what he did was electric. Now he's going to face his old quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
His old star in Aaron Rodgers. The two Aarons face off. Yeah, like you mentioned, that is going to be an absolutely thrilling, exciting game. And the other game that we've both got on our radar for this week is a game that I don't think we had on the radar at the start of the season. It's not one that we kind of bookmarked, is it, at all? And that's the Carolina Panthers versus the Bears of Chicago. Where do you see this game going? And obviously, two very interesting quarterbacks, two very interesting stories. Mm-hmm. How have you rated their season so far?
Again, Caleb Williams, the man who was picked first. A lot was made of him, his style and how he was in college. And in the NFL, it's taken him a little bit of time. And as we mentioned last week, when you've got people like Jaden Daniels absolutely tearing up the league, you need to be a little bit closer. And so this week, we did see Caleb Williams take that little step closer and looks a lot better, a bit more well-rounded, but still that offense doesn't look to be as dynamic as it was under Justin Fields, arguably. But this week against a Panthers team who did look like they were back onto their ways, but Andy Dalton showed, he is a veteran quarterback, and the Bengals tore them apart. And so this week, I can see the Chicago Bears coming away with another win. And Caleb Williams, slowly but slowly, building his aura, building this team. But overall, I think the Panthers, I love that Deontay Johnson. He's getting so involved in the game. He's getting the ball. Chuba Hubbard, tearing up the ground game. But overall, DeAndre Swift is going to rip this Panthers team apart. He did it last weekend. He's going to do it this weekend. The Chicago Bears are going to keep on rolling through.
Mate, I love that shout. I think Swift, when you lean on your ground game, especially as a rookie quarterback, you have to have a ground game. But the pressure can't all be on you. Mm-hmm. One thing I love about Caleb Williams is that he's got better every week. And that's what we saw this week. He's come off probably his best game of the season. He obviously having thrown 74% completion percentage this week and 106 rating. He gets himself a touchdown as well. And like I mentioned, he's getting better each week. He's getting those easy throws. He's looking at the reads and he's identifying who his red target is, if you like. Mm-hmm. And just getting the ball to him. He's doing the simple things really right. One thing as well, I don't know if you've seen it in the media this week as well, Taron, is he had a conversation with his head coach, Matt Eberflus, about the offense and how it wasn't clicking. It seems like that conversation has had a real effect on this team. And Caleb Williams looks so much more competent and so much more settled in that offense this week. And as they face the Panthers, as they look to extend their kind of winning run, I can see that offense taking another step. I can say Williams taking another leap. And I can see him being really, really dominant this week. I want to see him get a 250-yard game. I want to see him throw for 2 touchdowns. I want to see him being dominant. That's what we all want to see from the number one pick. Will it happen this week? Why not? That Panthers team, that Panthers defense, it's not as good as people think it is. Obviously, there was a lot of hype at the start of the season about how bad that offense was, but the defense isn't much better. So, why not this week? Why can't Caleb Williams absolutely tear apart the Carolina Panthers?
Get your money out, boys and girls. You've heard it here first. This is the week that Caleb Williams goes absolutely off. And if he doesn't, don't blame us. You didn't hear it here, to say the very least. One last thing I think might be worth mentioning is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Russell Wilson has come back. He's fit again. But we've also seen Justin Fields absolutely storm the last few weeks. Obviously lost this week to Joe Flacco, who came back and absolutely tore him apart. But just a few words on that. Where do you go with this? You've got a man who's been absolutely tearing it apart. He's so versatile. And then you've got Russell Wilson, who obviously has done great things in the game. He's a bit of a knobhead, but he can deliver when he's asked to.
I think for me, for this week at least, you've got to look at who the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing. And Taron, the team they're playing, I've got very much a formula to play against them. They play the Dallas Cowboys. The formula to play the Cowboys, what is it?
Run the ball.
Run the ball.
Play from behind and watch the Cowgirls cry.
That's it. That's exactly it. Which of those quarterbacks in Fields or Russell Wilson can run the ball better? Of course, it's Justin Fields. So getting the ball, it's basically a big tech Baltimore Ravens team. So if they can run the ball, the Cowboys, if this quarterback can run the ball, he's going to be the quarterback for at least one more week. We all know that. and then Russell Wilson will come back in and be absolutely terrible, like we know him to be. And again, it'll be another mid-season. It'll be another mid-season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think the quarterback controversy is going to be off for at least one more week, whilst the Steelers just run all over the Cowboys without Micah Parsons as well. He's been injured, looking doubtful for this week. So yeah, not looking good for Dallas Cowboys.
Love seeing you stress about the Cowboys. It really does make our week, to say the very least. But we'll have a break. We'll move on. We'll take a seat and head over to the sideline for a very interesting question this week, because as much as we've seen hard knocks and we've seen some hard plays and we've seen people be kneecapped like we're in Vietnam all over again, we've also seen a bit of softness, which we're not too fond of. Now, the phrase that's been coined is wokeness.
Woke nonsense. Nonsense.
Yeah, to avoid being cancelled, I'll let Elliot say it. Woke nonsense is the phrase that's been used. Now, the question we have this week is, what woke nonsense in football do we need to get rid of? Have you got a few examples there, Elliot, conjuring up in your mind? What do you think we need to get rid of?
Unsportsmanlike conduct. Unsportsmanlike conduct is the worst flag to be thrown. Why are you doing it? Gone are the days of Terrell Owens going over in Dallas and spiking the star. Gone are the days of Aaron Rodgers owning the I forget what team was it now? Owning the Bears, was it? Getting out the belt. Gone are the days of the wide receivers getting in the face of the cornerbacks and saying, "I own you. You are mine. You are my bitch." It's now all about, good try, really well done, really nice, really good effort. You can't even put your finger guns up without having a flag thrown on you, bro, and it's not nice to see. What do you make of unsportsmanlike conduct? Because for me, I just think it's taking the fun out of the game, and as Brits, we love fun. We love so much fun, and it's not happening.
We do. And it's ridiculous, to be honest with you, because you can go and headbutt somebody and knock them out, and you probably get less of a penalty for doing so. But if you put your thumb up to somebody, or give them a little wink, that's 15 yards. Go backwards, boys and girls, and all your hard work is undone. It needs to be sorted out. I mean, I saw was it Lafleur got flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct this weekend? I mean, it's probably warranted. He seemed like he said a few strong words to the referee. He also looked like he was going to pop a blood vessel, so I get that.
Part of the game. Part of the game.
Finger guns. Let it slide. You got to let it slide.
I agree. Mate. What woke nonsense is kind of has stuck out to you, and what are you looking at and thinking? Nah, let's change that.
Well, I've saw some absolute war crimes committed this week. We saw war crimes last year when that Grammy-winning artist wouldn't get off our bloody screen. And you know what? A fella's back this week. And it gets even worse because he's got the old team involved. Now, I love the podcast. I really do. I love his brother. But this is disgraceful. The Kansas City Chiefs, before their game against the Chargers, wore shirts in support of their teammate, Travis Kelce. Why'd they do that? He's not dead. He's not poor. He's not on a dry streak. No. He's got a good life going on. What's he struggling with? Catching 5-yard slants? It's ridiculous. Now, we know what it's like when you wear T-shirts and support your teammates before games as Liverpool fans. It doesn't end up well. And this is up there with one of the most outrageous things I've seen in the NFL. The Chiefs, if you're watching, you need to sort it out, you soft muppets. Because I tell you what, Kermit's not the only one a part of that squad. You got Miss Piggy in there, and she's in the stands. And I tell you what, you also got this little gonzo on the field who can't catch a pass. Sort it out, Chiefs. Sort it out, the NFL, now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Superb take, mate. I know we said that we're not pundits, but you are. But that was unbelievable take. I love it. Yeah, the Luis Suarez one. We'll leave that one out there. Let's not get involved in all that nonsense. But yeah, bro, he's not even injured. He's not dead. He's living. He's got a girlfriend who makes billions and billions of pounds a day, probably. Why? Why are you wearing a t-shirt? Why are you wearing a top? You've got enough tops. Why do you need one more? I agree.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So that needs to be sorted out. They should all be flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct because that is absolutely outrageous. And because of that, I'm out of breath. I've had enough. Let's go home and call it a day. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this week on the All Out Brits podcast. As always, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hate is always welcomed, if not encouraged. We do like a bit of that. And make sure you check out the TikTok as well and give us a follow over there. Mr. Greenwood, any parting words?
Let's just, this week, in your own lives, go away and really think about if your colleague was on annual leave, would you wear his top? No, I don't think you would. If your colleague was away from the office, would you wear a tie? His tie? No, you wouldn't. So just think about that. Just think about that.
Bear that in mind. And if any of you are going to funerals, I better not see any T-shirts made either. And so we shall see you next week when all of the plays have been played and all the downs have been downed. And we will see you again on the All Out Brits podcast.
See ya.